Hey, it's your boy Exodus here. I'm about to be back this week for another video. Alright, so this video today is going to be a little bit interesting. It's going to be kind of like a how-to without actually driving. How-to without actually showing you. I'm kind of going to try to break it down for you guys as much as possible. So today's video is going to be about operating a manual vehicle. I know, there's a lot of people out there that already know how to drive manual cars, but it is a dying skill. Not that many manual cars out there, or many people that know how to operate one, when it's actually one of the easiest things to operate. Before we kick into the intro, just want to let you guys know, fun fact, 60 million cars get made a year in America. Alright, we're back, guys. So, simple, right? We're going to break it down into, let's see, 3 easy steps, alright? First thing, let's imagine we're in a car, right? I'm in the car right now, right? So, most of the time you want to keep your vehicle in neutral, right? Unless you're on a hill, there's certain little tips and tricks you can use, like putting it in first gear, so that if the car for some reason, your e-brake isn't working and the vehicle starts moving, since the vehicle is off, once it starts rotating its tires and the transmission starts rotating, it will lock in place because the engine isn't rotating, and no matter what, your car is not going to be able to rotate that engine. And even if it did have enough force, it would take a little bit more effort for the vehicle to continuously move. So, keeping it in first gear on a hill, also turning the tire so it hits the curb, helps out a lot. But anyway, I digress. When you first get into a manual vehicle will be on neutral and the e-brake will be applied. Trust me. Every time a manual car owner stops its vehicle, he's about to get off, first thing you do is just stop the vehicle, put it in neutral, pull the e-brake, turn off the vehicle, hop out. Always pulling that e-brake. Because unlike automatic cars, where you put it in park and there's a little pin goes click in and it stops the transmission from moving. So then it actually does make the vehicle unable to rotate the tires and move it, right? And it also always depends on rear wheel and front wheel vehicles, right? It's wherever the transmission is at, or wherever the power of the transmission is going to, right? So if a rear vehicle, literally, it'll stop the rear tires from moving. Front wheel, since it's not connected to a transmission or connected to the engine, it's free flowing. So if you were able to pick up the front of that vehicle on a rear vehicle, the front tires are just spin because it's not connected to an engine block. It's not connected to anything. It's just free spinning. All right, so in vehicle, right? Vehicle's on neutral, e-brake applied, boom. You'll notice at the bottom, there's going to be these three little pedals, right? The one on the far left is going to be the clutch, right? Middle, brake, we all know it. Right, accelerator. So the only extra thing in a manual car is that clutch, right? A lot of people get into it, it's like, what the hell is that? There's a lot of memes out there, it's like, oh, what's this third pedal do? Well, it's the clutch, right? It opens the flywheel, is what we call it, right? So all this, in an automatic car, the car does it automatic, right? There is a torque converter inside that kind of replaces the human portion of us engaging the flywheel to release the band that's on the transmission. And then once you put it in gear, take your foot off the clutch, the band closes. When that band closes, it locks into the gear and it makes everything rotate, which then goes down the diff or goes down your axles, your CV axles, and moves the vehicle, right? It is a very important thing. That clutch is how it opens and closes that band to move the vehicle. right? One little form of advice though. Always start the vehicle. If you're gonna get a manual vehicle, for you to even be able to start it, you have to push in the clutch, okay? Most new vehicles have a safety where like if the clutch isn't pressed in, you can't turn it. But that only accounts for if, let's say, first time driver, or you don't know, maybe every driver is different when it comes to manual cars, right? So some people will, stop their vehicle, pull the e-brake, and while it's still in, since the vehicle's off, they'll put it in first for that extra safety measure so the vehicle 100% will not move, right? And there have been many times, because I had an old 1998 Honda Civic, so there's a lot of safety features that were not in it that are now in manual cars, but sometimes I would turn on the vehicle while I was in gear, and you get the little hop that you get in manual cars. Because since it is engaged in the gear, when you start the vehicle, the engine, starts. It does that one full rotation. It moves like one of the pistons up, which then moves gears, which moves the crankshaft, and that crank also moves the transmission. So if it's in gear, like the gear is locked on, when you turn the vehicle, it moves. So whenever you start the vehicle in gear, it'll hop forward and die immediately because you're not providing power. And 500 RPMs or whatever the jump is for initial start, the starter does not have enough power to just keep the vehicle running because the vehicle needs to continue moving because it's locked, the gear is locked in. So once the gear locks and you move forward and there's no other momentum moving it forward, the gear kind of locks the crankshaft, which then locks the pistons from moving, which then your vehicle dies, right? Clutch, very important thing. So you'll be in your vehicle, you'll get in, neutral. E-brake is applied, of course. You're not gonna take that e-brake until the e-brake, the emergency brake, you will not take it off until you are ready to drive, okay? So you can turn on the vehicle, always leave the e-brake on. That's the last thing you take off before you start giving it some gas. So, in the vehicle, right? You're gonna get in, you're gonna use your left foot and you're gonna push into that left pedal right there. You're gonna push into it, bam. You're gonna keep your foot on it and you're gonna twist the ignition or push to start, whatever type of vehicle you have. Holding the clutch, turn it on. Boom. Car is on. Please, for God's sakes, make sure the vehicle is on neutral. Because once you take your foot off that clutch, it'll move forward. All right? So vehicles that do have that safety where like you have to push the clutch in before you start it, let's say the vehicle isn't in first gear, but you know it's in first gear, right? You see it, but okay, cool. You forgot about it. Naturally, every vehicle, you're going to push in the clutch and turn it on. The clutch is the first thing. Vehicle does not turn on unless the clutch is on. Sorry, the vehicle does not turn over unless the clutch is pushed in. Safety measure, right? So you push it in, start it. If your vehicle is in gear, do not take your foot off the clutch. Because as soon as you do, the vehicle will engage because the engine is rotating. And once you let go of the clutch, the band locks into the transmission, which then it will follow the crank. And when it follows the crank, the vehicle will move forward and then die because, again, you're not giving the engine enough power to continuously rotate that transmission. So, again, vehicle on neutral, e-brake applied, clutch, twist. Boom, vehicle's on. Once the vehicle's on, you can take your foot off the clutch, right? Because since it is in neutral, there's no gear. So it's just rotating, rotating, rotating. The transmission is rotating with nothing holding it back. There's nothing engaging it to force, the CV axles or your long ass fucking axle that goes all the way to your diffs, right? Now, for some odd reason during this entire recording, I decided to mix up automatic and manual transmissions the entire time. So, just want to fix this before someone looks at my video and was like, what the fuck is he talking about? So the band I'm talking about has nothing to do with the manual, right? That's a very automatic car thing, right? Manual, the flywheel, like I was mentioning before, the flywheel and the clutch kind of are together almost, right? Because the flywheel is, even automatic cars have the flywheel is that literally like a plate with teeth on it that is connected to the engine part, right? Yes, connected to the crankshaft, right? Which rotates the flywheel, which then once the clutch is let go and you're in gear in a manual, will open up and rotate also the transmission. Because when you push in the clutch, it like open and closes the clutch, the clutch, which then lets you either engage or disengage the transmission from the engine. Simple as that. The flywheel is connected to the clutch, which then connects the engine to the transmission. Okay? Sorry. Okay. Next, let's just say that you have to move forward. Let's say that the car was already backed into a parking spot. All you have to do is move forward and continue, driving. Just drive forward and you're going to your destination. So, first thing you're going to do is hold in that brake. So you're going to push your right foot on the brake, right? Because once you take the e-brake off, there's nothing like holding that car back. So if it could roll backwards, it could start rolling forward for something because there's nothing on it. Like which way, if you're at a slight incline or slight decline, the vehicle will just move either back or forth. Back or forth. Yeah. Back. Either roll backwards or roll forwards. Jesus Christ. You're pushing that brake. Next, once you've pushed in that brake, you'll drop the e-brake. Push, boom, e-brake down. So that means you no longer have that brake holding that vehicle back. Next, you'll press on that third pedal, the clutch, you'll push it in all the way. Then you'll move, boom, first gear. You're in first gear, right? You now, right? You'll not ever just take your foot off the clutch and press on the accelerator, because you either slam on the accelerator way too fast after you get off the clutch and the vehicle will just take off and then still probably die, because there's no way you'll be able to press on the pedal as fast as the thing clamps onto the transmission and starts rotating the engine with no power, meaning it will stall out. It's a word that you'll see a lot of people, drive manuals, be like, yeah, I stalled out my vehicle in traffic. I was pretty embarrassed. When you first start driving a manual, like for the couple, I would say for the first few months, the first 2 months, you're going to stall the vehicle out. You're not going to be used to how to properly transfer, the perfect little balance between clutch and accelerator, and the vehicle will stall out, and you'll have to push in clutch, turn the vehicle back on. All right? So, you're in that vehicle, boom, first gear. Now, what you'll do is you will slowly take your foot off the clutch, right? As you're slowly doing this, is for you to practice. At this point, you're not trying to move the vehicle. Remember, we're trying to learn how to operate a manual vehicle. So you're going to take your foot slowly off the clutch until you're feeling the vehicle bog down, which you'll feel like the vehicle like wanting to turn off, to stall out. It'll start like shaking. If it starts shaking a little bit too violently, push it back in. Because that means you're getting to the point where the vehicle is like, oh shit, I can't move any further. I can't, because it's starting to engage the transmission and the engine's like, I don't have enough power. And you'll see the RPMs drop, meaning your vehicle's like, hey, either give me more power or I'm about to like, so you do that. I want you to do that a few times, maybe 1, 2, 3 times, right? Just so you can know where the friction zone is, right? I'm a motorcycle rider, so we call that feathering the clutch, right? You're like kind of like finding that perfect friction zone, that perfect point where you literally, the gear catches and wants to move the vehicle forward. The only reason why it's not moving the vehicle forward is because your foot's on the brake. right? Because if you took your foot off the brake while the vehicle was shaking, it would start wanting to move. And at that point, you would have to give it a little bit of power. But again, I want you to focus on just finding that friction and just practice doing that. You know, getting it to where it's almost about to bog out, about to stall out, and then push it back in. And when I say push it back in, I'm gonna say like slam it all the way to the bottom again. You're not pushing it all the way in. You just want to push it all the way back into where it stops. And then you'll, try to find that perfect little friction zone, feather the clutch until you find, boom, the catch point where the gear begins to catch, right? Other than the clutch, it catches. Now that you've done all this, you're now starting to get ready for the next steps. Now, when you are practicing and driving a manual car, I would advise you to do it on a flat ground, okay? Because there are other factors that will fall into place as you get better or as you practice more with, driving a manual car that we don't want to throw a beginner straight up on it. We don't want to put a beginner on a hill and then them get that panic mode when the vehicle starts rolling back because you have to play with the accelerator and the clutch at the same time to get it off, right? All right. The next thing, right, is you're going to give it gas now, right? You're going to give it a little bit of gas. So foot on brake, foot on clutch, right? Brake, clutch. Now, what you're going to do is as you're taking your foot off the clutch, right, as you start feeling the vehicle catch itself, like the gear catch, you'll take your foot off the brake. So the vehicle will start moving slightly forward. And while it's doing that, you'll give it gas. And as you're pushing on the accelerator, you will slowly, ease off the clutch, slowly. You don't want to take it off too quickly, because if you take it off too quickly and you're not giving it enough gas, it'll stall out on you. Because again, it's that you have to give it enough power for where even if it's fully grasped, the engine can still rotate and push the car forward. So it's like a very little quick game that you're playing with your feet with the accelerator and the clutch. You're kind of finding that middle zone where it's like you're trying to find the exact point where you're able to move forward and you slowly take your foot off the clutch. Once you finally are able to do that, I want you to just do that for a bit. I just want you to take your foot off the clutch, accelerate a little bit, and then clutch in, and you'll see the car lose, it'll stop moving and maybe even start sliding backwards, and then give it a little bit of gas again. Don't take your foot off completely off the clutch yet, just a little bit, and then switch it again. And you're just gonna do this for a while. So the vehicle's gonna be falling back and then going forward. Back because it has the gears is not yet caught by the band, and then boom, catches it, accelerates, takes it off again, and you're gonna do that for a bit, right? You're gonna practice just moving back and forth till you get comfortable to where because this is a very important thing to know, especially when you're this is a great thing to practice, because when you are on a red light, a stop sign, you want to be able to, give it gas and put pressure on the accelerator, let go of the clutch, and then go. You want to be able to do that smoothly. And the more practice you get in, you'll literally be first gear, you'll be sitting there, and then you're at the same time. I'm telling you, it's a lot of synchronization between your left and right foot. It seems complicated, I'm telling you, but it's not. It's very simple. It literally is. The more you practice, the better it is. And this is why I'm telling you guys exactly what they just practice on is just feathering that clutch and playing with it, moving forward and back. And you'll see people do this sometimes that are not so good at driving manual cars. Will be doing that at a red light, or at a hill. It's very known for people that are on hills that are too scared to stop the vehicle fully and then take off from a hill. You'll see them and let the vehicle fall back and move it forward over and over again until it's time to go, and then they just let go of the clutch and go forward, right? So it is something that unexperienced people do on hills. There's a bunch of little tips and tricks you can use for when you're on a hill until you get confidence enough to where hey, I got this, and just take off. But you'll be playing with that for a bit. Now, the next thing you're going to do, we're actually going to move forward. We're actually going to move forward. So now that you've practiced doing this for a bit, clutch all the way in, foot on brake. You take your foot off the clutch, vehicle starts slightly wanting to move, you take your foot off the brake so the vehicle is slightly inching on forward, you'll push on the accelerator slowly, take your foot off the clutch. Boom. You're driving. Great. The vehicle is moving. The thing is that people don't know, the hardest thing to do in a manual car, motorcycle, is get through first gear. Once you have it in motion, everything else is cake. Everything else is easy. The hardest gear to get is first gear. Everything else, cakewalk. Because, right, you're driving, right? You'll see your RPMs go up. Because, again, it's one gear, depending on the size of it. It's one gear and you'll see the RPM go up because your vehicle's like, hey, you're never staying in, sorry, kind of like cut that off and started this one, but you're never staying in first gear long. It's probably for the first 1 or 2 seconds. It's enough to get the vehicle moving. As soon as the vehicle starts moving and it's at like at least 3-4 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, you're gonna drop that into second gear and then go. Second gear is the going gear. It's the gear that is literally the second strongest other than first. When you're going up hills, second gear. Now let's say this hill is like real steep. Now if you see the vehicle slowing down and RPMs dropping, that means your vehicle is not having enough power and the vehicle will stall out. And at that point you would drop it into first gear and that bitch will go. It'll have enough power to keep pushing through, right? And a lot of semi-trucks, you call that the granny gear. You can carry a lot of weight with the granny gear. Can do a lot of things. All right, so you have gotten yourself off. Your vehicle is driving. You're in first gear. Next thing you're gonna do, you're gonna push in the clutch. As you push in the clutch, you will take your foot off the accelerator. Because if you keep your foot on the accelerator, you push in the clutch, your RPMs will shoot up. Like it will just go. Because it now has nothing impeding it. There's no, transmission that's rotating the tires and holding the whole weight of your vehicle isn't on, like putting that pressure on the engine. So if you push in that clutch, the engine will just spin with as much power that you were giving it. You don't want to do that because you'll see the people that do commit that mistake, you hear the like it'll go all the way up, a little red line, because you literally just took all the pressure off. Like when you push it in, you take all the pressure off from the transmission to the engine, which then the engine just goes, whoa, I'm free, and like lets loose. So as you are about to switch gears, you'll push in the clutch, and as you push on the clutch, you'll do the exact opposite you did to make the vehicle go off. So stationary, you put it in first gear, clutch in, boom, you're driving. To change gears, you'll then push in the clutch, take your foot off the accelerator, right? Once your foot is down, right? So at this point, there's two things, right? So you can either push your clutch in all the way in, or you can find just below the friction zone, and then you can change it. You don't want to do it too early because then you'll hear a very disturbing scratching noise of your clutch, which is a disc. Just as you're like forcing like the rotating engine, and like you're forcing the rotating engine to like lock in. You haven't synced it up yet, So you don't want that. It's a very disturbing thing. You're going to burn through your clutch. And if you burn through your clutch, you just say all your gears become neutral. Yeah. It's not good. I've had it happen before. Yeah. I blame safeties for that. I'll tell you guys at the end of the video. Anyway, so you do the opposite. Take your foot off, say, push in the clutch. And you're doing this in a smooth manner. You don't have to do it fast. You will get faster as time progresses, as the more you do it, to the point where you literally can shift I would say like in a split second. Usually like clutch in, second, boom, it's in. First time, you'll just like take your foot off the accelerator, push in the clutch, boom, put it in second, take your foot off the clutch, accelerator, right? And you still want to kind of remember that friction zone because you don't want to give it too much gas to when you take your foot off the clutch, the vehicle like kicks, like you feel it like locking gear, like boom, and let go. You'll hear the thump, and you'll feel the vehicle hit that next gear. Like you'll like feel it as it engages to push you forward. You don't want that. You want a nice smooth transition. So you'll do smooth. Same thing as you do in first gear. Not as you don't have to worry about it. The vehicle isn't going to stall out, but you just want it smooth. So then it's like a like it. You might feel. My goal was always to not feel the gear, the shifting. Like in most automatic cars, you don't feel it shift. You can hear it shift though, right? And there's like other techniques you can use to minimize that and to extend the life of your clutch, like double, right? Yeah, you can it and stuff like that. That'll like put less strain on your clutch. But again, that's for a later time. So, like I said, you're doing the same thing. Pushing the clutch, second gear, start pressing the accelerator and letting go. Once you get close to that friction zone, that's when you start pushing the accelerator and you let go slowly. Boom. You're in second. Then the same thing for the next one. Push in, take foot off accelerator, third gear, then boom. And you're doing that the whole time, every time you're shifting. When you're shifting down, there is where it lies the tricky part. If you just push in the clutch, drop it to the next gear, and you do the nice and slow, you will catch the engine and transmission going at different speeds, right? Because at this point, you're dropping the gear, right? You're changing into a smaller gear, and the engine is still going at its normal speed. So once you finally take your foot off the clutch and connect them again, the engine will have to slow down the vehicle. So your RPMs will shoot up and the vehicle will like slow down. Like you'll feel like RPMs go really high and the vehicle will slow down. That's called an engine brake. Very debated. Some people say that's not good for the engines. You should never be doing that in your car. It puts a lot of strain on your transmission, all this yada yada yada. I would use engine brakes a lot. If I didn't want to I didn't want to keep pressing on the brake all the time. I just drop the gear, boom, slow down, and then go. But a little bit more, I guess, complicated technique would be rev matching, right? So as you drive a manual car longer, okay, yeah. I'll tell you guys about that later. Rev matching part. Anyway, so shifting gears to a lower gear. What you'll do is you'll take your foot off the accelerator again, push in the clutch, drop the gear, and then slowly take your foot off the clutch and accelerate slowly. If you do this, you'll still feel an engine brake a little bit, just because at that point the engine and your tires are spinning at different momentums, because your engine it's like the RPM start dropping as soon as you push your foot into the clutch. So once you when you take your foot off the accelerator and you push in the clutch, your RPMs are dropping, right? So when you put it down to different gear, it's going to go back up to the RPM that it would be if you're going that current speed in that gear. So you'll feel the engine slow down the vehicle. The vehicle will not bog. It will like lean forward where the engine is at because it's slowing it down, right? And that's how you do it. Simple as that. You're just doing the same thing you did with changing it up a gear to when you change it down a gear, right? Now, things to make it easier for you to shift down is rev matching, is what I was trying to say before. Rev matching. All you're going to do is when you put when you're driving and you want to shift down, you take your foot off the accelerator, push in the clutch, drop the gear. Let's say you're in third, you're going to second. You'll also give it gas to, let's say, 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, depending on what that gear would be at that speed, if you understand. So while you're driving a manual car, you'll start noticing things. As in, when you're on second gear, you'll be going like maybe 45 miles an hour. That's a push. Holy fuck. You're going 25, 30 miles an hour, right? Now, when you go to third, your RPMs are down here, but you're going like 30 or 40. So second gear, getting close to 30 and 40. Third gear, 30 and 40 is right there. So you saw the difference. One being at a higher at a 5 and one at a 3. So what you want to do when you downshift and you know the speed you're going, you're looking at your RPMs, you always want to aim a little bit higher, because when you drop a gear, the RPMs will go higher. So what you'll do is you'll push in the clutch, drop the gear, give it enough gas, very lightly. I'm telling you, it's like a feather push on the accelerator, because again, there's nothing holding the engine back. You'll see the RPMs go up, and as it's almost close to the point where it would be at that speed, you can slowly take your foot off the clutch, and the vehicle will just transition smoothly. It'll be a very smooth, like from third gear to second gear. You won't feel a difference, because at that point the engine has caught up with the transmission, you know, or has caught up, not the transmission. Damn. Anyway, the engine was able to catch up with the speed that it's at, or the rotations it will need for the transmission to keep going at that speed. Okay. That is what you want to do for a constant downshift. But again, if rev matching is too complicated, all you can do while you're driving, if you're going to shift down, if you're shifting down, it's because you're slowing down, right? So as you're slowing down, once you get to that, you know, if you're going from 40 to 25, and you know that, you know, you're in third gear, and you know in second gear, 20 miles an hour is like awesome, you literally can just drop to second, and since it's already at 20 miles an hour, it'll just be a smooth shift to the lower gear. That's it, you know? Now, this is actually how you drive a manual car, right? It sounds difficult, it sounds hard, but if you do these things that I showed you in the beginning, easy day. I'm telling you, it is an art that is worth learning, because one, motorcycles are manuals, all of them. That's just what it is. They have automatic motorcycles, yes, but the majority of motorcycles that are sold in the market are all manual, all of them. They all have a clutch, they all have the shifter. Simple as that. They're all manual, right? So it is something that you should learn. Because I'm telling you, once you learn it in a vehicle, all you have to do then is rewire to be able to do it with your hands on a motorcycle. I learned on a motorcycle first, then I went to the vehicle. It was an easy transition. You know, there's still a little hit or misses of letting it stall out, because it's different instead of using your hands, I'm using my feet. So it's a little bit of like rewiring you have to do. But again, it's not difficult. It's an easier transition than someone that's never drove a manual but sitting there like, fuck. All right? I really hope that I was able to break it down for you guys as much as possible, and helped you with these small little techniques to help you. Now, the little thing I told you, I'll tell you at the end, right? Double shifting, right, is what we call it. Double shifting. That's not double clutching. I was high when I said that. Double shifting, all right? It's weird, but it apparently is supposed to, it does help take the strain off of your transmission. You'll double shift either up or double shift down. Either way, you're going to be double shifting, and it makes it easier on the clutch, and it'll preserve that clutch for a longer period of time. It's simple. So you know how I told you when you're shifting gears, clutch, third gear, take clutch off, accelerate, boom. You know, it's just you're going straight from one gear to the next, right? When you double shift, there's a middleman now, neutral. You'll always hit neutral, and it's a quick pump of the clutch. So it's like pump, neutral, pump, third. All right? So that's how it is. So before you get to your third, you have to stop at neutral completely for like a split second and then go to third. And during that whole time, you have to wait until you're in third to give it acceleration, because you're not going to accelerate in neutral. Doesn't make sense. So when you double shift, it'll be like literally pump, show you second, right? Pump, neutral, pump, third, and you're accelerating on that. And that last pump you're doing, then the last pump, you're giving it acceleration. And you'll do the same thing when going down a gear, but if you want to rev match, you have to do that too. So in the middle of it, going from neutral to the next, when you're downshifting, you have to rev match to then hit that perfect smooth transition. And I'm saying it's slow, but it's like a transaction to where it's like, that's what it is. You literally hear a pump, pump, and you're already in the next gear. Because it's like pump, neutral, pump, third. Pump, neutral, pump, third. Pump, neutral, pump, third. Like, it's just a quick transition. It's a double shift. Helps take the strain off your clutch because you are stopping at neutral to then go to the next gear, right? And there's a plethora of other things you can do with manual cars. And because if you know, when you start learning a lot about RPMs and where everything falls perfectly, you literally can shift without pushing the clutch in. But that's a whole nother story. It's accelerating, 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 take your foot off the accelerator, and at the right RPM, sliding it into the next gear. And it's an insane process of like shifting without pushing in the clutch. It is a insane skill, because once you learn it, you literally can like hard shift that bitch all the time. Like if you're racing, you can just da 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 without pushing a clutch in. Risky, and it does put a strain on the clutch itself because you're just slamming that gear in at the right moment. Yes, but it's still being forced into that gear, which can also put issues with the synchron band and everything, and wear it out. So it's definitely not something I would advise you to do, but the more you learn how to shift without pushing the clutch, it'll just help you out in the long run. You know, downshifting without pushing in the clutch, it's the same thing. You just have to match, it's rev matching. Once you learn how to rev match, you literally can do anything. Because once you hit the proper rev for that gear, literally the gear will fall right into it. Because it'll be like a smooth transition. It'll be like, oh, whoa, just go straight into it. Anyway, long video. Don't know how long it is, but I assure you it's long. I just want to thank you guys for continuously watching us and supporting us as much as you guys have. If you could please, hit that like button right there, right? Subscribe to our channel, please do. And ring that bell notification so you can stay updated when we post a new video. Thank you again, guys. And I will see you guys next week. Deuces.